you get the team you deserve. As a leader, if you're not always climbing the ladder and trying to improve and grow, you can pull your team to your level and then you're all stuck on the level. And
you get the team you deserve. Let's unpack that.
For me, like leadership is...
You were hiring people that weren't reflecting your values.
As leaders, we can go so heavily on people being the problem, but if your processes aren't solidified and backed up, you have no right to go hard on the person.
I think a lot of people are scared to put the brakes on. They don't want to take a step back.
We get drummed into us that if we're not growing, the business is dying. It is okay. Life goes through seasons: spring, summer, autumn, winter. They are part of life. The business was serving my life direction, but I don't think I could have fitted big visions and big goals for individuals into that business. Whereas now we have a big vision for the business. It has purpose, it has direction.
What was the turning point for that? Welcome to another episode of Profit Made Simple. You guys have spoken and we have listened. We are bringing Mitch Phillips back for his third episode, mate. Great to have you here.
Thank you for having me back. The trifecta.
The trifecta. So you're only one of two people that has appeared on 3 episodes. People are loving your insights, your experiences. And I thought what we'd do is just pick your incredible brain on all things how to build a team, because this is something I know has been...
It's a journey.
A journey, yes. I was going to say a battle, but...
I think a journey is a more positive way to look at it.
A more diplomatic way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Now, you and I met each other, I'm not sure how many years ago, but it was a number of years ago. And at the time, you were really struggling with team member churn. And every time you'd get somebody in, 6 months later, they would leave. And it was just this vicious cycle. And it obviously was consuming you. It was consuming a lot of resources. It was stressful. And it was just preventing the business from getting to that next level because you're in this constant hamster wheel of recruitment, onboarding, exit. How have you resolved that?
I think two things. The first thing is personal standards. I think you get the team you deserve.
He's not entering this episode softly. And you get the team you deserve. Let's unpack that.
Yeah. So like what I mean by that is the personal standards I held at that during that season. Complete transparency. I wasn't the best leader, so I got what I deserved from a team standpoint. I very much tried to abdicate my responsibilities out of the business. Context-wise, I was a new father. there was a lot of newness on me. Like we just come out of COVID. I was recovering from a lot of PTSD from a few very traumatic situations late in that season. Just had a kid.
Vicky had also stepped out of the business.
Yeah, obviously Vicky was now like a full-time mum. She'd stepped out of the business. There was a lot of change. And rather than leveling myself up as a leader, I found my comfort in one of my key staff at the time, and I just abdicated my responsibility to them without giving them the guardrails, the mentorship, the leadership they needed to properly ensure the success of the day-to-day operations of that business with that team. Obviously, that was a consequence. Given my responsibility, someone that wasn't quite ready to handle it meant that the business suffered and we got what we rightly deserved.
Which was a lot of churn at the time.
A lot of churn. And like coming back to that, the next season from there was like just complete unvalue alignment. I don't know if that's the right word, but like
misalignment of values.
Yeah, like we were just hiring for bodies in the gym. And we were hiring people that weren't aligned, not even just to the core philosophies of the business, but to the core philosophies of myself and Vic. Obviously, like we are the owners, we are the leaders of that business, and we're hiring people that didn't match our personal values. So with that comes friction of culture, friction of standards. We built a business that neither of us really wanted to be a part of in that season. So then, as a consequence of that season, we then had to go through a full gut and restart. And in that sort of gut and restart, the biggest work I did and Vic did, like obviously Vic started this journey herself first. Like she went very hard into, her personal evolution, her personal leadership, which then inspired me to do the same. So she actually took the step first in the journey. I was in much denial, I was just in denial of that season where I was like, I'm cool, like I'm sweet, I don't need to do that. But she stepped in there first. She sort of started to work through the PTSD we both had, started to level herself up, both emotionally, spiritually. And then as a consequence of that, I was like, oh, geez, like I need to do the same, because obviously we either grow together or we grow apart. Like that's a choice. And on the last episode, I said, you know, the person I married, being her, has been the most important decision I've ever made in my life. And she was the reason why I took that next step into getting spiritual support, unpacking my PTSD, and then getting support as a leader. And here we are today.
I want to pull out two things. I want to extract two things from that. Number one, I say this often, and what you said is a complete reflection of that that business our business is a reflection of who we are. And right now, at that point in time, you weren't a great leader, and so the team reflected that.
100%. And it didn't matter what KPI I put in place or what system. Like, I'm very much a systems and procedures person. Like, I'd much prefer to work with a computer and a spreadsheet than having critical conversations. Like, my bread and butter is systems. So my stretch point is leadership, where I'm having these face-to-face, I won't call them critical conversation. I think that's a negative frame. We're just having conversations to move people forward, right?
Yeah.
I think the framing of it's really important. If we're talking like, I've got to have a hard conversation with Mark today, it's going to be a fucking hard conversation.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Or if it's like, I'm going to have an empowering conversation with Mark today, it's a much different frame. You're going in it with a different energy.
I like that. I really like that. And I want to circle back to that. The other part that you identified was that you were hiring people that weren't reflecting your values. And really, like, business is just a reflection of our values as well. So if they're not reflecting your values, they're not reflecting the business values. So there's two key elements that you identified. Let's talk on how we've developed you as a leader. So you've dived into it a little bit. You had PTSD. You had some trauma. You had to resolve that trauma.
Had to feel it to heal it.
Yeah, you had to feel it. Yeah, couldn't keep sweeping it under the carpet.
Big bloody molehill on the road.
Yeah, that's right. So you started with healing from the trauma itself. That was part of leadership. That's self-leadership. How else did you develop as a leader that people wanted to work for and wanted to stay in the organization and work with?
Yeah, I then got a spiritual mentor to sort of help me understand myself on a more deeper level in terms of my own triggers and how I react. And so, obviously, like in leadership, you can either be proactive or reactive. I was very much a reactive person. Like, I'd see something, bam, I'd address it. And sometimes the addressment of it wasn't an empowering way. It was just very cutthroat, dry, straight to the point, didn't lift people up, right? So it became a bit of a negative consequence with that. Away from the spiritual mentor, I then had a leadership coach who works with me. I see him every 3 weeks. And through that, he's helping me understand myself and my communication. So for me, like, leadership is communication. So he's really helped me understand how I can communicate more clearly, more effectively, and lift everybody around me and become sort of that lighthouse rather than a tugboat. So for me, it's no longer like, a good analogy is like, you can only drag someone to the level, or maybe drag on the right word, but you can only lift someone up to the level you're on. So as a leader, if you're not always climbing the ladder and trying to improve and grow, you can pull your team to your level, and then you're all stuck on the level, right? So for me, like, to answer your question around how I'm keeping people engaged now, is I'm evolving, I'm growing constantly, right? Which means I can move them to my level, but I'm already on the next level. So then they have somewhere to go, right?
Yeah.
It becomes this full evolution.
I like that point. You're a lighthouse, not a tugboat. And it is our job as the leader to bring that energy, bring that commitment that really brings about the best of the team member, that gets them excited, that gets them enthusiastic, that gets them joyful, so they can, play a big part. And you identified that you were probably doing the opposite. You were having an adverse effect.
100%. Like, I don't think the vision we had for the business was big enough to fit high quality team in there. Like, the business was serving my life direction, but I don't think I could have fitted big visions and big goals for individuals into that business. Whereas now we have a big vision for the business. It has purpose. It has direction. So when someone comes on board, I can show them how their vision for their life can be unlocked through the vision of the business, which I think is massive.
That is huge. We talked on values. You identified you were just getting warm bodies in the room, people that could service the demand that you had, and you were really taking anybody that had a decent CV and it didn't matter about what their values or characteristics were. What was the turning point for that?
I just had enough.
Yeah.
Like for me is like when situations at work bleed into my marriage and bleed into who I am as a father, something has to be addressed. And through that season, for me to be stressed in my personal life affects how I turn up as a dad and as a husband. And like at the dinner table, when my wife and obviously Vicky and I, we own the business together, and she plays a very active role. If we're having dinner conversations around staff performance and things that happen in the business while our son's eating dinner, like for me, that's a red flag. We have something dramatically going wrong that we need to address. Because obviously dinner is a time for family. It's a time for reflection and gratitude and, enjoyment of life, not like negative stuff. So when I saw that starting to happen, we both came to terms that we had to do what was necessary to realign the ship. And then we took the necessary steps. And, in that scenario, like in that season, fuck oath, it affected us. The business, the brakes were put on. But the short-term effect of that versus where we are today, I would make that trade every day of the week.
I love that you identify that. You had to purposely put the brakes on.
Yeah.
Right? And I think a lot of people are scared to put the brakes on. They don't want to take a step back.
Well, part of that comes down to the fact that we get drummed into us that if we're not growing, the business is dying. Like it's okay. Like it is okay.
Yeah, it's okay to have these periods. I actually drew a chart up in a leadership day on last Friday in Adelaide. And I was like, you're going to hold these places which are plateaus for an extended period of time. So the not growing, you're dying. It's actually incorrect because you're not always growing. Growth isn't linear. You actually have to sometimes take a step back so you can take the 10 steps forward. You have to do the reinvention.
But it's like, what is growth? Like in that season, like 100% we're growing.
Of course you were. You were growing your culture. You were growing what you stand for.
But it's also like life goes through seasons. Spring, summer, autumn, winter. Like they are part of life. Why would you expect your business to always be in spring?
Yeah, and I think, most frustration is born out of expectation. And it's the expectation that we've always got to be growing. And then it's also, you and I used to chat about this when we were working together was I had to reframe growing to you. And I was like, Mitch, growing is not always about getting a new client every week. Do you remember? And it's like, all right, growing is actually let's create the handbook on culture. Let's create definitions of our values and let's change the way that we recruit. That is growing.
I think that's an important point as well, is like as leaders, we can go so heavily on people being the problem. But if your processes aren't solidified and backed up, you have no right to go hard on the person.
Yes.
So like you got to make sure you got the processes. And that's why I think we spoke briefly last time around like competency and motivation.
Yes.
So when we're addressing performance, the first thing we ask the person we're addressing is like, do you understand the role you're playing and the tasks that you have to deliver on? Because if the answer is no, we have a process problem. So we've got to go back, okay, let's redefine the playbook. Let's get a clear understanding of what winning looks like, reteach it, reassess. If at that point we have a problem, it's now motivation. All right, so it's obviously a different conversation.
Very different.
But you've got to understand, you've got to go through the process first before you just berate the person.
Yes.
And obviously that's another evolution of leadership.
Yeah, one of the models that I give to our clients is first and foremost, if there's been a underperformance in a particular area or something hasn't gone according to plan, is you've actually got to go in there as a leader and go, number one, did I not explain why that was important to be done this particular way or why I believe it, it should be this way? That's on me if I didn't, because I didn't communicate that well. Number two, did I not create the how? Did I not train you? Did I not give you the playbook? Did I not give you the SOP and the feedback so you could execute it? Or number three, is it a motivational issue, right? But the first two, we got to put our hand up and go,
radical ownership.
Yeah, this is on me. Yeah, I didn't give you the why. I didn't give you the how. If it's a motivational issue, then it's a very different conversation.
Yeah, 100%. And we talk, when we onboard a new staff member, we talk around the line. And this is like we have a say and play above the line. So for us, it's like ownership, accountability, responsibility that has you playing above the line as a victor. And we explain that. So like if we walk into a scenario where we're having to address performance, the first thing is like, I take ownership first. where am I responsible in this situation for that poor performance? Have I not articulated expectations? Have I not, given a document that's been clear on process, right? Because obviously if they're not understanding, we have to look within first. And that's a bit of a hit to the ego.
It is. But often we'll want to have a look outward, and it's like, well, let's take a step back, and staring back in the mirror is like, oh, you fell short on this. We often hear these, again, they're cliche, and often they're cliche for a reason, these statements, but hire on attitude, not aptitude. How do you balance that in the hiring process?
Man, that's a tough one. For me, as I mature, I think character is everything. At the end of the day, with the experience I have, and like yourself, if you were to own a gym, is like you can teach people pretty much anything. You can teach them the systems. You can teach them how to teach someone a squat. You can teach the accountability. Like you can teach all that, but you can't make someone a decent person. And that's why for me, values and character are now the most important thing. Obviously, if they come with experience, that's just an added bonus. And sometimes with the experience, they also bring baggage. They bring baggage of their belief of how things should be done. It's like, well,
they're not as malleable sometimes.
No, correct.
Yeah.
So like there's always a bit of a trade-off. For me, I think we've struck. We have the English. We have the right balance in our team now, where a lot of our team came to us with experience, but they've also come to us wanting to grow and evolve as people, and both personally and professionally. And I think that's where we are able to really support them.
I want to unpack your actual recruitment process. So I want you to take us through from start. You've got a position available. What does the advertisement, the channels look like? What does the interview recruitment process look like after that? What does the onboarding process look like? What is the review process? So take us from start all the way through.
So obviously we use Healthy People or Seek as our main source. I'm always keeping my, as the leader of the business, I'm always got a recruiter's hat on. So if opportunities present itself where I might see someone, I'll obviously flag it. And, for us, it's about keeping a pipeline of people. We may not always have a job ready, but building a relationship's never hurt anybody. So that's obviously
always recruiting. The worst time to recruit is when you need someone.
Yeah. Pretty sure you told me that lesson. Then from there, obviously, people will apply for the job. We're lucky enough that most of our roles tend to be salary based, which is obviously very attractive in the industry. From there, they apply. We send them a bit of a questionnaire that they have to fill out before we get on a phone call. If they don't fill it out, they haven't put the effort in, so I'm not going to chase it. If they fill it out and I like their response, we jump on a phone call. Obviously, the idea behind the phone call is just to see if they can hold a conversation and sort of what their communication's like. If that goes well, we bring them in for a face-to-face. Again, the face-to-face is more around like our values. So they're filling in another questionnaire that's more built around our values, our culture, and how they've either met that standard in previous employment or in their life in general. After that, they come in, they do a bit of a trial. So the trial for us allows them to see what our culture and community is like to make sure it's a right fit for them. For us, it allows us to see what they're like as an individual, whether they'll fit our culture and community. They'll also train someone or take a session during that trial process so we can kind of gauge their coaching ability and see how much work we need to invest in to bring them up to the standard we want. Once they're successful through that, they'll start. Our coaches go through a 4 to 6 week onboarding. Again, depending on their experience will depend on how quickly they take a client and how quickly they learn. If someone comes with experience and they've crushed their onboarding, they might be taking a client within 7 days. If they're a bit of a newer coach, needing more nurturing and more support, it might be 4 to 6 weeks before they take a client. But they'll be doing like shadowing of our experienced coaches, reviewing systems, procedures. We have an onboarding portal where they go through and watch all video content around like our philosophies and our systems and our structures and stuff. And then after 6 weeks, they're fully fledged as an RFD coach and they'll be on the floor taking their sessions.
Yeah, I love that process. It's really exhaustive all the way from...
Very exhaustive.
Yeah, and it takes a time, right? You can't hire someone within 24 hours. No. This is a 6-week process that they need to go through. And I love the qualification straight away. This is the standard. And if you can't meet the standard from the very beginning, then we're not even going to consider you.
I think that's a massive thing. Like you're going to get the best out of someone within their first 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So if it's shit in that period,
Oof.
it ain't getting any better. So, I think sometimes I've been, one of my biggest passions has been taking new coaches and helping them build a career. And I love doing that, right? However, I'm in a season of life where I don't have the resources from a time standpoint to do that. So, every now and again, I'll get stuck in that moment of, oh, I really like you, so I'm gonna help you become a great coach. And then 4 weeks, I'm like, Jesus, I've bitten off more than I can chew here. So I think it's understanding as an owner what season of life you're in and what the importance of positional as well. Like you need to have your team design rather than just putting bodies in the gym. It's like what position are you actually trying to fill here? So for us, like last year, we intentionally went out and we looked for senior trainers, people that had 3 to 5 years experience, that were able to facilitate more of a senior position on our team. Once we had that, it was like, cool, okay, we can bring on some junior coaches now where we can sort of shape and nurture them a bit more because we have that leadership structures in place. So it's understanding what you're hiring for as well, I think is important, and then drive KPIs.
One of the things you said in our very first episode is that the standards you walk past are the standards you accept. Now, you mentioned earlier that you've had to learn how to have empowering conversations. And it's an area that a lot of leaders struggle with, having that radical candor or that critical conversation or the empowering conversation. What's a framework that's helped you have those conversations efficiently and effectively?
I think first is seek first. What is it? Seek first to understand before being understood. So for me, it's like seeking to see if the person, so like let's say for example, we have a rule where it's like you got to be at the gym 10 minutes before your shift starts, right? And that's purely, if it's a 5 a.m. open, like you got to open the gym. We don't want clients waiting in the car park to warm up. So that's our golden rule. So if someone comes in, it's like 5 to 5. It's like, cool. Hey mate, listen, just quickly, like, is everything okay this morning? I noticed you were a bit late. Oh, everything's fine. I was just late. Okay, cool. Just keep in mind that we actually have that 10-minute rule. We had a couple of clients trying to warm up in the car park in the rain. So if we can just get you 10 minutes early, it ensures the gym opens on time. People can warm up before the session. Cool? Cool. And then obviously if it happens the second time, it's a different conversation. But the first part of that is like we checked in to make sure they're okay first, address the standard, reminded them. I'm a believer that at the end of the day, we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught. So for me, it's like I'm like chief reminding officer at our gym. I just remind people of the standards. And I'm okay with that. That's my role. Like at the end of the day, my team care a lot. Like they care a lot. But no one's going to care as much as I do.
No.
Right? Because success or failure falls on my name.
I want to talk quickly about KPIs for your coaches because a lot of business owners struggle for this.
Yep.
What KPIs should be in place? What actually is a good measurement of performance?
Yes. So I used to try incentivize the bare minimum, but I've recently had my eyes open. So we do floor and ceiling. So the floor is like your standard to be employed by us, right? So you have to, as a coach on the RFT team, these are your metrics of success just to keep your job. Because at the end of the day, like they have to be still moving forward in a high performance manner. And then we have stretch KPIs that unlock bonuses. So for us, like the main ones are going to be obviously hours worked. So we look at that as like completion rate. If you have 30 hours of clients and you're only completing 20 hours a week, there's a 10-hour discrepancy, which means you're not doing your job properly from accountability standpoint, right? So that's one of the key metrics. The second one we look at is retention. We aim to, as a business to be 98% a month. So every coach has a specific KPI for retention based on their management in terms of like how many clients they see each week. We're big believers of our product drives our business. So 2 metrics of success for our product is reviews and referrals. So if a coach isn't getting a certain amount of referrals or reviews in a month, it's an indication that the product may be off. So there's probably the core 4, I would say. And then more of a subjective one is values alignment. So every month we rate our coaches. Obviously, the coaches will understand the value, what success looks like and what success doesn't look like in relation to that value, right? So they're very clear, like if, like for example, an amazing client experience, that's one of our values. So what does that look like success-wise? Well, every client's greeted by name within 10 seconds of walking into the gym, right? It's very easy. Did I do that? Did I not do that? Right, so we can objectively say, okay, Dan, you've let 4 people walk in and you ignored them all. Are you on days alignment or not? Well, no, you're not. So that's going to give you this rating for the month. So they're kind of the core 5.
Love that. Really helpful. Last question. You mentioned that one of the huge draw cards and point of difference is that you have salary-based positions. That's not always easy to do in the beginning because you're like, I've got to now pay for this person. Don't know if I've got the hours for them. The margins are pretty skinny. So what helped you create that salary position where you could be in a financial position to do so?
I think it's understanding you go through seasons. So some seasons you'll be more profitable. Some seasons you won't be. To grow, you have to spend, right? So it's like for us, it's like we know that for X amount of members, we need to have X amount of staff, right? So when we get to that threshold, we know we're going to go back a little bit whilst we bring on this new staff member, but we're going to increase by this once they're up to scratch. The fact we're on a semi-private model also supports it. Obviously, we can service more members per hour. So, you know, for us, we know that we're always going to have 45 sessions a week, right? They're always going to be there. But I mean, like, it's like any profession. You know, if you run a law practice and you bring on a new lawyer, there's going to be a cost involved in that, and you may not necessarily have the clients just yet. So for us, it's kind of like backing our belief that we're in a season of growing and we need another coach to facilitate that growth. So we'll put them on and build them into it. And obviously, like, you know, I think through our business structure, obviously we've got some full-timers. We still have some casuals because obviously they're able to pick up extra shifts here and there if, you know, someone goes down sick or goes on leave or whatever. So it's like coming back to something, the point earlier was like understanding what your team looks like for success and then kind of building that out in the best possible way.
Fantastic. Mitch, just another episode of incredible insights. I love your honesty. I love the transparency and the lessons that you've learned as a leader. And there's been lots of them. And we'll have to have you coming back yet again so we can unpack more of those lessons in the future. For people out there that loved your message, hearing about you, how can they better connect?
Hit me up on Instagram. I think my handle's like @Mitch Phillips. There's probably an underscore there somewhere. And just send me a DM. Happy to chat.
Fantastic. Guys, thank you so much for watching, listening to today's episode. Hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. And if you've done so, make sure you subscribe, like, and share. Thank you.